Hey everyone, welcome to week 2 of our series called Rest. God has good in mind for us, and He'll replenish us, He'll refuel us, He'll restore us. If we'll look to Him, Jesus says, "Come to me and I will give you rest." As we were shaping up this series, I could not help but think of my friend and former senior pastor of our church, Kevin Odor. For those of you who may not know him, he helped start our church over 28 years ago and spent more than 23 years as our lead pastor before retiring just a few years ago. He's still an active part of our church, and he and I still get to have breakfast once a month. And let me tell you, every single time he asks me, "Am I resting well?" And he asks, "How can I help?" And so I said, "Kevin, how about you come teach us about rest? And how about I take the weekend off?" And he said, "Deal." So while I'm not here together, I'm excited, and I cannot wait to hear all the impact that a message has from Kevin Odor. Let's welcome him now.
Good to be here. Thank you. Drew's very gracious. He looks good, doesn't he? And I hope he has a good rest this weekend. And it is an honor to come here and to see all of you guys. Some of you have no idea who I am, and that's great. Because that means that you've, in the last 2 years, have come on and joined in the team here and are putting your shoulder to the plow here of this group of people who call themselves Canyon Ridge. We're glad to welcome. For you long-termers, one or two of you may hear something you've heard before, but maybe you just need to hear it again, and I hope that it's helpful to you. The series is a good series, and this idea of rest and replenishment is something that's become deeply important to me, and through the years I've seen it and lived out. And when Jesus said, "Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy and have heavy burdens. Come to me, all of you who are weary and have heavy burdens, and I will give you rest." Wow, does that sound good? So is that your life? Are you still living burdened and heavy? June 6, 2005. It was a Monday morning. I'll never forget it. I arrived at a Jesuit retreat, not Jesuit. It was a Passionate retreat center. The Passionists are a branch of the Catholic Church who focus on the Passion Week of Christ, and they had a retreat center in Sierra Madre, California, right next door to Pasadena, and that's where Fuller Theological Seminary was, and I was a student in seminary, and I was signed up for a 2-week class with Dallas Willard, who was this guru of spiritual formation stuff. He was a professor at USC, professor of philosophy, and that's where he made his main living. But then in the summer, he gave 2 weeks to instructing senior leaders from around the globe in this 2-week prayer retreat center kind of thing at Sierra Madre. And I was in the class, and it was Monday morning as the class was starting. Now, Sunday was church, and I preached, and then said goodbye to my family, drove over there, slept, woke up, got there at 9 o'clock, ready to rumble. And I'm so excited because this guy is a great author. He's a very bright mind. He's so wise. And all of us were eager from all over the globe. And he goes, "Okay, so here's the orientation kind of stuff, here's the syllabus, and this is when we're at breaks," and just going through the details. And he said, "And by the way, classes start every morning at 9 after breakfast. And by the way, the first 3 mornings, just go ahead and sleep in. And come to class when you wake up. Because some of you are from around the globe, different time zones. Some of you are just tired, and it doesn't do any good to talk about, meditation or solitude and silence, because you'll fall asleep while you're doing that stuff. And sleeping is good when you fall asleep in the presence of Jesus, so it's not a problem. And I say that to all of you here today. If anybody falls asleep while I talk, it's okay. Just say, I'm applying the message, I'm resting. Anyway, he said all that kind of stuff. And then he says, "By the way, why are you guys so tired?" And something happened that day and that morning that changed my life. He said this phrase: "When's the last time you had a 24-hour period of time where you didn't produce anything?" 0 for 35. 35 pastors from churches all over the globe, and none of us raised our hand. Because, we work hard for God. We're high achievers. We work hard for God. There's God's work to be done. 24 hours where we didn't work? What's up with that? None of us raised our hand. And then he looked at us and he goes, "Let me tell you why you're tired." And he went to Exodus 20, verse 8. All of us knew where he was going. He was going to the 10 Commandments. And he focused in on commandment number 4. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. And honestly, something happened in the next 45 minutes. This was not a planned part of his lecture at all at that moment. He just went on a riff. And that riff changed my life. There was really a conversion before the before picture of Kevin and the after picture of Kevin. That morning was life-changing. It messed me up for all the right reasons. And I had to deal with something that I had put away in a box, and I felt very comfortable where it sat. There was a before picture and an after picture of my life that has been very clear and very clean, and I can see it. And to this day, I am so grateful. And I look back on it and go, what happened? Because it's like, had I ever heard of a Sabbath day before? Yes, like my whole life when I was a kid, I learned the 10 Commandments. I knew what the Sabbath day was. I had practiced having a day off, but my day off wasn't a Sabbath day. It was a day off. And what's a Sabbath? I was clueless. And I started this journey, and for some reason, the truth that this guy said over the next 45 minutes fell into my heart, and it took root and grew and produced fruit. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Jesus had a parable about casting seed, and some of the seed falls on hard hearts and it doesn't get in. Some falls on rocky soil where there's shallow soil and it grows a little bit, then it dies when the sun gets hot and it gets challenged. And then some falls on thorny soil where they grow up together, but the thorns choke out the good because life's busy. And then some fall on good soil where you produce a harvest. And for some reason, that seed that he threw out that day got into the hard heart of Kevin, a crack in the surface, and started producing fruit. And I haven't been the same. Changed me. And once I received the truth of this idea of Sabbath rest and how much life it gave me, I felt like I could start to speak to other people, which I did to our staff and I did to our church through the years. And it became a thing that I just saw it. I'm wired as a shepherd, so I see when people are tired and when they're weary. And my first so are you taking your Sabbath? And everybody looks at me with the deer headlight look like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And I go, I didn't know either. And now that I do, I want to challenge you to observe the Sabbath. Man, there's so much junk associated with that for those of us who have been following Christ for a long time and those who understand the Sabbath ideas from the Bible. I mean, it's something that our Jewish friends practice religiously, and they get all legalistic about it in all kinds of ways. And at the same time, they've also done things to inform me about it, what it really means. But this is some of the junk I had to work through. Isn't it good to work hard? Yes, hard work. I want to be seen as somebody that works hard. I don't want to be seen as somebody who's lazy. And it's weird to be introduced as, Kevin understands rest. Nobody rests as well as Kevin. It's like, that's not who I want to be. I'm a hard worker. I work hard. And we value hard work. And isn't it good to provide for your family? Isn't it good to be honorable in having a trade? Isn't it good to find your sweet spot where you say, I was made for this? And I believe God made us with production in mind, that it's good for us to do stuff that has meaning and value and that is fulfilling. There's this word called vocation, that when we find our vocation, our calling. And what is this calling idea? It's your work that you're called to. It's a click more than just work. I mean, you'll start to understand what I'm saying because it's subtle. But when you run into a school teacher who is a professional school teacher and they do things well professionally, that's awesome. But when you run into a school teacher who's called, you can tell there's a click. When you run into a healthcare professional who's professional and they take care of you professionally, you can tell they're skilled. But then there are those that you run into that are called. You can tell. And it's not just those two professions, it's all kinds of professions where people have abilities and they're professional, but then there's a calling. What is it like when you find your sweet spot and you go, I was made for this and I produce and I work hard. It is a godly thing. It's a divine calling. I am all over that and I am for that. And I pray that all of you find your calling in life. But what if it's all work? What if it's all you work hard and you don't rest? That's a problem. You ever heard of workaholic? Workaholic got identified by those of us that saw people burning out because they would say, I work and that's good, so I'm just going to keep working, and I go home and my life's a mess and a wreck and my relationships stink, but so I'll go back to work where I'm esteemed and valued and I'll just keep doing that. It becomes an addiction to get away from the challenges of life. And some people do it because it's my only good identity that I have. There is a downside to only working. Our culture promotes work and your identity in work. You go to a new party, you say, what's your name? Here's my name. Next question is, what do you do? You're defined by what you do. What do you do? Is that who you are? Shouldn't it be a better question to say, who are you? It's weird if you ask that at a party. People are going, who are you? But isn't that the important question? Who are you? There's a void about our identity that can be filled by work, and we esteem it. And it's something that was true in my life. And when I first heard this professor talk about Sabbath, this is what I had to do. I had to look at my Sabbath box. What's that? I knew about Sabbath, and I had it all boxed up and dealt with, and I knew what it was, and it was right there. Don't have to disturb it, because I got it all figured out. What do you mean? Well, I knew what Sabbath was. I learned the commandment. I taught on the value of it and all this, and I had my world figured out about Sabbath. And for some reason this day, the seed got into my heart, and it changed things. You see, there's a rhythm of life. Did you guys know that? You ever notice that? There's a time and a season for everything under heaven. The Old Testament says, but you breathe in and you breathe out. There's a rhythm. Breathe in, breathe out. If all you do is breathe in, that's bad. And if you don't breathe anymore, that's bad. Your heartbeat, it stresses and relaxes. It stresses and relaxes. And if all it does is stress, that's a problem. You know, we're not just physical beings. We're also spiritual beings. It says God is spirit in John 4. And it said in Genesis chapter 2 that the Lord God formed humans out of the dust of the ground, and then he breathed in them, and they became a living person. That we are a physical being and a spiritual being. There's a rhythm to life, and here's God's rhythm. You ready? 6 days you work, 1 day you rest. He knows. He made us. He commanded us to rest. Why did he have to command us? Because we're messed up. We come up with all kinds of reasons. I did. And here is God making one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not work. Didn't quite say it like that, I paraphrased. But that's basically what he said. Before I get into the details of the commandments, I want to just ask you a little test. Here's a little test. Give yourself a test. Ready? How rested are you? Scale of 1 to 10. 10 is I am thriving, overflowing, full of energy. 1 is I'm desert dry. Got it? Gasping. Gasping or thriving, overflowing. Scale of 1 to 10, how rested are you? And that's going to lead to these next questions. You ready? How healthy are you? Thriving, desert dry. Scale of 1 to 10, what's your number? Next one, how healthy is your body? Scale of 1 to 10. How healthy is your soul? Well, that's a weird one to gauge. How do I do that? How healthy is your mind? Scale of 1 to 10. Thriving or dry? And I'm going to summarize all these up in something that is, I believe in, and you guys have used it all the time. How healthy is your heart? Is your heart good? Is it full? Let's go to the Ten Commandments now. Old Testament time. And that's what the professor did to us, because he had us go to Exodus 20, verse 8, which is where the Ten Commandments are first listed in the Bible. But before I dive into the Ten Commandments, not quite yet, I want to do the sidebar. I just want to make sure, this is one of my things in my Sabbath box that I didn't want to examine because I had figured it out. And it's this: the Old Testament is the law, the New Testament is grace. The covenant of the law, the covenant of grace. I am a New Testament Christian, so I live under grace. And thank God, because grace is amazing. It's awesome. Because grace is the Father loved us so much, he sent his Son down to die on a cross for us. We didn't deserve that, can't earn that. And the death paid for my penalty of sin, because the law showed me that I'm a sinner. I knew the law and I broke it. And I had my own law in my own heart, and I broke that too. I'm a law breaker. I need forgiveness to get to be a holy God. I need the cross. And so grace is the answer. Oh man, I'll take grace all day long. That law, that's hard. I'll take grace. I've been living in grace and loving it. Like the law, love grace. But guess what's in the law? The law came from God. And God made life, and he said, if you want to know how to live like this, and he gave us the law. And if you don't live like this, there are consequences, and you'll suffer the consequences, and that'll be hurtful. But if you want to avoid the consequences, obey the law, and you'll be blessed. So there's something good in the law. Even though we're not saved by it, there's life in it. Okay. Let's just review. What's in the Ten Commandments? Number one, there's only one God. God above all gods, the creator, the source of everything. That's good to know. Number two, he says, don't limit me to an image or an idol. Don't diminish me because I'm big. We just sang about that. Number three, don't disrespect my name by throwing it around without respect. Number four is take a day a week and make it holy, a holy rest. Made the top 10. Isn't that wild? And then number five, honor your father and mother, so God values family and home. Number six, don't murder, God values life. Number seven, don't commit adultery, God values marriage and sexual purity. Number eight, don't steal, God values work, the fruit of labor and ownership. Number nine, don't lie, God values the truth. And number 10, don't covet, God values contentment. Man, are those good values to live by? Absolutely. Is there value in those commandments? Huge value. If you live like this, you avoid the consequences of not living like that, and you have blessing because you are living like that. All of that is good. But Kevin, if I was honest with myself, I was a 9-commandment guy. I saw value in the 9 commandments, and I lived those values. But that one commandment, that fourth one, didn't need it. Don't need that one. I'm doing pretty good on the other 9, 90%, that's great. But that one about Sabbath, see, I had reasons to not obey the Sabbath day and not mess with it, just to leave it in the box. I boxed it up with these reasons. I had personal reasons. I had theological reasons. I was saved by grace, not by the law. I had stinking thinking reasons. You know, I kind of like being needed. And I kind of set up my world where people need me, and that makes me feel good, so I get my identity from getting needed by other people, and that's kind of a mess. That's stinking thinking. And there's sinful reasons, and it's like, whoa, maybe I need to look at this again. Why did God make this a commandment? That's just a great question. Why did it make the top 10? You know, a couple things that are unique to Jewish culture, by the way. And I was a religion major in college, and so I got to study a whole lot of religions. And unique to the Jewish religion is 2 things. They have temples that are empty, meaning no idols. Temples in other religions all have idols. And the second is they have a day where they don't work. Those are two unique things of the Jewish faith compared to all other religions. Isn't that interesting? Let's look at this commandment. We're going to dive in to the 10 commandments, but specifically the fourth. And I'm going to tell you right away as we start what to stop doing. It's going to sound weird. Stop doing productive things. Doesn't that sound weird for a pastor to tell you? Stop it. Don't do anything. That's work. Don't do anything productive. The word productive is a way of explaining work, because as soon as you said don't work, everybody goes, what's work? Is this work or this work? And the Jews, do you walk 1 mile or 2? Do you cook on Saturday? They have a ton of rules about what work is and what isn't. And we start doing that too as soon as we start living the Sabbath, so I don't need to do that. I'll leave it in the box. But you know what? I'll pull it out, and I'll have to find out in my own heart and life and rhythm, what's work? And the easiest way to define it is productive. Why am I doing stuff? Here's what the commandment says. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. Pause. Time out. On it you shall not do any work. On it you shall not do any work. I'm just trying to make it clear. And as soon as we ask that question, what is work? Interestingly, in the 10 Commandments, God goes on and tells you, defines in the commandment, lots more words. In case you're curious about what work is and how serious I am, on this day you shall not do any work, not you, nor your son or your daughter, or your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. Got it? Nothing. No work. Boy, is that weird. My professor's question after he read Exodus 28 to a bunch of senior pastors who knew the 10 Commandments by heart, he just looked at us and said, which part of that do you not get? Then why aren't you obeying it? Don't have to be saved. I don't have to get to heaven, but maybe I have to get heaven in me. Whoa. There's this whole thing about a 24-hour period of time that I like the definition from the professor, because there's the Saturday-Sunday argument in the world, and if you keep the Sabbath, does that mean we all have to keep it on Saturday? And the Jewish people do. But we're Christians now, so we moved it to Sunday, and Sunday's the new Sabbath for Christians. And so a whole bunch of laws, the blue laws in our country of bars being closed on Sunday and all that kind of stuff, which is 2 generations ago. And that used to be the way because he legalized that stuff out of respect for the Lord's day. But the truth is, every day is the Lord's day, and there's not one day more special than the other. For 14 years after I converted on dealing with the Sabbath, from what I had in the box to I need to practice the Sabbath, my Sabbath day was Monday. Because I tended to work on Sunday, like you guys showed up. And you're needy sheep. And I loved being your shepherd. And my Sabbath was Monday. In this town where everybody works a weird schedule, including weekends are prime time for hospitality, a lot of people's Sabbath needs to be Tuesday or Wednesday. A 24-hour period of time where you don't produce anything. What is work? It's being productive. That's a way to define it. Is it work to garden? Well, when you garden, pulling weeds, does that work? While you're gardening, are you raising vegetables for your family or just want to get your fingers in the dirt because it's good for your soul? What about reading? Is it work to read? That feels productive. Well, why are you reading? Are you reading for a term paper that you got to write? Are you reading for something you have to produce from it? Or are you reading for no good reason at all? What about golf? Why are you golfing? You golfing because you're trying to lower your handicap to win a trophy or something? Or are you golfing because you're trying to network and land a contract of a client? Or you golfing to enjoy nature and enjoy fellowship with your friends. This is really subtle stuff. It's not like one behavior is bad or good. It's your heart and the why behind it in productive and work. It's going to take you a while to figure out your rhythm. That's what I learned. But here's what I know, is that the commandment says this: stop getting your identity from doing and producing for a day. Stop getting your identity from being a human doing and remember that you're a human being. God's saying, I made you to be productive, to work. What you do matters, but you are more than your work. You're you. And I love you. And I want to hang out with you. And if that's going to happen, you got to stop being productive so we can have time together. By disobeying this commandment, I open myself up to sin. I hadn't really seen that. Disobeying God's best for me is what I was saying. I don't need that. I know you said this is best for me, but I don't need that. Not me. Why? Well, I am what I produce. Is that sinful to say that? Well, it's true, but I'm more than that, so it's not fully true. Potential sin, if I don't do it, the world will fall apart. Listen to that. If I don't do that, the world will fall apart. Who is the God of that universe? Me. What's commandment number 1? There's only one God. I'm breaking the commandment. I'm telling God, yeah, I know you're God, but I'm God of this. And guess what that is? That's a sin. And it's also not healthy. It is not good for your soul to carry the weight of the world around for 7 days a week. 1 day a week, you let God run the universe by himself. You take a day off. That's convicting. It was so convicting because I had not seen the theology of the fourth commandment, which is one of the reasons it was in the box, that I didn't see the point was stop being God for a day. I hadn't known I was being God. Yes, you were. Why? Because you said you can't stop working because things will fall apart because it's all up to you. And it's great to be responsible. It's part of producing. I love the responsibility of leadership. And for a day, can I let God run the universe by himself? See, I had the pastor thing going because one of the things in my box, I'm a pastor. So I do God's work. God's work never stops. How can I take a Sabbath? Because I'm doing God's work, and God's work never stops, so I'm off the hook. I don't have to obey that one. Man, I had to look at that again. And some people come up with other things. Well, I'm a parent. I can't stop parenting. I own a business. You know how it is with a business owner? I have responsibilities, and the answer is yes, you do. And so that you can do them well with a full heart, you need a day off to let God run the universe. So here's the big question. Point number 1 is stop it. Stop producing for a day. And if you do that, then what do? If I don't produce, then what am I supposed to do for that day? The commandment goes on and tells you what to do. It's right there. Start remembering your Creator is what it says in Exodus. Start remembering your Creator. What do you mean? Well, this is what the verse says. For in 6 days, the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that was in them, but he rested on the 7th day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. Did God rest because he was tired? Isn't that a great question? No, he wasn't tired. He's all powerful. He could have kept going. Then why in the world did he do it? And that's a great question. You can wrestle with that, but my take is, as an example, that even God took a day to rest because something in the rest is life-giving. Just like he spoke into darkness and created light, like he spoke into his creation and created each one and gave life, there's something about the rest that gives life. He's the life giver. It is so good for us to sing the song we sang about the God of the universe, the source of everything, the one that is all powerful, awesome. Because in our world, we can get busy so much and so focused on solving problems and the burdens of our day that we're looking at this and going, oh my goodness, I can't stop. And we think it's all up to us because we're the God of our universe to fix everything. And we forget there is a God of the universe who's bigger than this. Psalm 121 says, I lift up my eyes to the hills. Where does my help come from? It comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. Is God bigger than your problems? We tend to forget that. And take a day where you remember it. Remember your Creator and how big and awesome and powerful and intelligent and wise. And your jaw starts. When's the last time you experienced the realization of the Creator and your jaw dropped in awe and wonder? Maybe you need a good Sabbath day to let it sink in. We have our molehills, we turn them into mountains, and they need to be downsized back to a molehill. Remember the Sabbath day. And this is the phrase that just convicted me as Dr. Willard was just going on this riff. Wasn't even 4 notes, it wasn't in the syllabus. He just was downloading. He says, can you turn the universe over to God to run for a day? And I had to confess my sin. God, forgive me. Something had to change. Remember your Creator. The second thing, the second part, the second idea behind the Sabbath of what you do when you stop producing is you start remembering your Redeemer. Start remembering your Redeemer. Where does this come from? Well, redemption means to be bought back or purchased or forgiven. And we as Christians are purchased by the cross or bought back or redeemed by the cross. But the idea came from what happened in the life of the Israelite nation. The first 5 books of the Bible are Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Exodus is where the 10 Commandments are first listed, where Moses got them and brought them down, and they're the ones that we just read. But later on in Deuteronomy, the 5th book, the 10 Commandments are stated again in the 5 books. Here it was to remember your Creator. Here it has a different reason. Because what happened in here is the Exodus. What's the Exodus? Well, the Israelites were captive in Egypt, and they prayed for a deliverer, and God raised up Moses, and Moses led them through the wilderness for 40 years to the edge of the promised land, and Joshua, or Yeshua, or Jesus, the Joshua figure, led them into the promised land. So we are captives in sin, and what sets us free from our sin, and what is the promised land of heaven that we end up in? If we're led there by Jesus, we're redeemed. When's the last time you remembered that? Let's see it here. Observe the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, as the Lord your God commanded you. Sounds the same. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, and the 7th day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your ox, your donkey, or any other animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns, so that your male and female servants may rest as you do. Remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath. Why is it important to remember you're created? Because you're here on purpose, and the God of the universe knows your name. Why is it important to remember you were redeemed, saved, and forgiven? Can you forget that? When you're in the middle of working so hard in the problems of your life and the burdens and responsibilities you carry, and sometimes you guys are saying, God, I need some help down here. Where are you? Do you love me? If you loved me, things would be easier. If you loved me, you'd give me some help with this. What's up with that, God? Where are you? Do you even know my name? But when you remember your salvation story, you start to remember the time that you encountered, oh, the cross is for me. This grace is for me. I am forgiven. He knows my name. He knows every detail of my life, and he still sent his son to die on the cross for my sin. I am loved. I am accepted. I am forgiven. He knows my name. I'm not alone. He is with me. Anybody here need to remember that? How often? How about every day? How about at least once a week on your Sabbath where you stop producing so you can sit back and enjoy the relationship with your Redeemer? Jesus was smart. He continued that concept from the Old Testament when before he was crucified, he was in the upper room with his disciples and he said, "This is my body." Took a piece of bread. "Take this to remember me. This is my blood." Took a cup and said, "This is my blood shed for you. Take this to remember me." Remember your Redeemer. It's good for your soul. It's good for your heart. It's good for your mind. It's good for your strength. Remember. Okay, so there you go. That's a download. You handling it so far? I know one or two of you are saying, yeah, but. Okay, yeah, so that all makes sense, and there's reasons for it and all of that, but you don't know my life. Is there an exception to the Sabbath? I mean, give me an off-ramp, an exception, a clause, an asterisk, or whatever. Is there one? And the answer is yes. You ready? Here it is. Jesus was being questioned because he healed somebody on the Sabbath, and the people go, oh, that's work. So Jesus said in response in Luke chapter 14, then he asked them, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a well on a Sabbath day, will you not immediately pull it out? Pulling out an ox from the well is work. Pulling out your kid from the well is work too. My wife wanted me to point that out, that I was saying oxes are more important than kids, and sometimes we may wonder, but really it is the kids. Of course, you're going to do whatever you can to save your child. And you're going to do whatever you can to save your ox because it's your livelihood. And if that goes down, your economy goes down and your family's destitute. So you got to get it out. In other words, emergencies show up on the Sabbath day. It's part of life. And when it does, deal with it. But no, it's not the norm. You deal with it that day, and then you do the Sabbath again, the next opportunity. By the way, Mark 2:27, Jesus said this on another occasion where they were testing him about the Sabbath. He says, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath is your gift from God, not you to obey and jump through the hoops so he somehow is pleased. It's not that. God's not making the 10 Commandments so he can just be pleased because you're jumping through hoops. He's given us the commandments to bless you because the Sabbath was made for you. That's important to know. So my box got messed with, and I had to live differently. And I had to figure this stuff out. And it took me a while. I wasn't good at it. And I've learned some things. You ready? Here's one. Try a sundown to sundown Sabbath. The Jewish calendar starts at sundown. That's why those Jewish friends of yours that celebrate Sabbath day, they start Friday night. That's part of the rhythm of the Jewish calendar. And it's interesting that the Jewish calendar starts a day at sundown because it's basically saying something theological, which I didn't know. The theology is you rest first and then you work. You work out of your rest. And in Western culture, we earn a good night's rest. I'm so tired. I worked so hard today, I've earned a good night's rest. Can't wait to fall asleep. I've earned it. The other way is you trust God by sleeping and resting in him. You trust him to provide for your day. Subtle, but I started doing my Sabbath sundown to sundown. Second thing is to prepare for a Sabbath. It's not going to accidentally show up. People do this sometimes with other practices like fasting. You know, you skipped a meal. Hey, I fasted. No, it doesn't count. The Sabbath is in the front window of the car, not the rearview mirror. It's I intend to rest this way. You prepare for it, and that gets your heart ready for it, to meet God, to be with God, to be not in a hurry. The idea of mini Sabbaths is something that you have to learn, because you may be in a season where to take a whole 24-hour period of time is really hard, but you may be able to take 2 hours. Like if you co-parent kids and one of you can say, hey, take 2 hours, and the other one says, hey, you take 2 hours. And you start finding the 2 hours where you can go spend it with the Lord in a significant way is to be life-giving. And there will be a season when you'll have more than 2 hours. How about this phrase? When somebody walks up to you and says, what are you doing? It is like terrible to say nothing. It feels like you're the laziest goofball ever when someone says, what are you doing? Nothing. You always got to be doing something. If you're somebody. Oh, I'm doing important emails, or I'm reading for this. We got to be doing something. I'm thinking about something, solving a problem. I'm always doing something. Except one day a week where you're not producing anything. You have to get comfortable saying nothing and realize that that's right. So I came up with my phrase of that. It's like for no good reason. You do stuff for no good reason. No productive reason is another way of saying it. What does that sound like? Well, for example, I learned this last year that my wife and I would go to church online at 4 o'clock on Saturdays. And there was this thing called Sunday, and in the fall, there were these things called football games. Wow, that was it's awesome. So I could watch football for no good reason on my Sabbath. Isn't that awesome? I invite you to follow my example. Grow into it. I have to do this, to I want to do this, to this I can't wait to do this, to man, I missed it. That's what will happen because it's life-giving. It's not something you have to do. It's a gift. The Sabbath was made for you. And finally, I want to say, as far as a tip, be present. When you do create a Sabbath, be real in it, be present. One way of saying that is, isn't it sad when parents say to kids, hurry, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up? Can you imagine a day where there's no hurry? Was Jesus in a hurry? What's it like to not be in a hurry for a day? Whoa. And sometimes we create the space, but we don't show up ourselves, and we miss it. I want to show you this picture, because hopefully it'll just illustrate itself. There's a dude on a boat, and there's a whale breaching the water, and he missed it. That's way too much like most of us. We are missing life. So here's the deal. I do need to say this because I kind of implied it, and I'm going to go ahead and give you the bad news. If you don't obey the commandments, there are consequences. What are the consequences of not taking a Sabbath? Burnout? You ever heard that phrase? You can't sustain a pace that's going every day. Burnout and blow-ups. Illnesses because of a depleted immune system. Addictions to stimulants and other things to try to keep you awake and going. Sleep aids because eventually you have to go to sleep some. And you end up with this irritation, explosive, running on empty, and you blow up at the people that you love the most. Is there a cost? Oh, it's huge. Versus, can you see well-rested parents? That would be a miracle. Well-rested parents. Well-rested supervisors. Well-rested teachers in the classroom. Well-rested coaches on the soccer field. And then we start getting into what would it be like as a culture if we had well-rested air controllers or surgeons. You don't want a surgeon go, oops, I'm tired. Well-rested financial analysts and make wise decisions. well-rested drivers on our roads, well-rested pastors. Was Jesus in a hurry? Are you? What would it be like? These last 3 questions, I want to challenge you. When is the last time you spent 24 hours not producing anything? And I guarantee the first time you try it, it's going to be hard. It's going to feel so foreign. I was afraid that I was going to work my whole first day of Sabbath that I tried 16 years ago. Does this work? Does this work? Does this work? Instead of learning, it's a phrase that helped me. Is this good for my heart? It's good for my heart to do this. It's restoring to my soul to do this. And when you start asking those kind of questions, you start finding what to do on your Sabbath. When's the last time you had an unscheduled day? Boy, there's something good about that. To say yes to, hey, let's play this game. Hey, let's go ride bikes. Yes. What would it look like to give your technology a Sabbath? Now I'm poking at you. Could you be offline for an hour? Or 2 hours? Or 4 hours? Or 8 hours? Or what about a day? What if you didn't know what everybody else was doing for a day? We're going to pray about this and give you a breath at the end of the service, very intentionally, well planned out by the team here. A breath, a song that's going to focus on being in the presence of God, of breathing in the spiritual strength of the Holy Spirit. And I want to pray before the band sings. But I want you to prepare just for the next moments, a chance to take a breath and to rest. Let's pray. God, I thank you. I thank you for how wise and intelligent you are and how you made us with a rhythm in mind and how the rhythm of life can help us thrive as we embrace it and as we follow your ways. Forgive us for the times that whenever we think that we know more than you do, that we look at a commandment and say, no, I don't have to do that. God, help us as we learn to live full, deep, and abundant lives. I pray for all the baby steps and the next steps that are going to be made because of this weekend, and I pray that progress will be made in rest and life will be felt and experienced by more and more of us. God, maybe we trust you. And like the 23rd Psalm says, he makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. A lot of us have souls that are dry. We need restoring. And when our molehills have become mountains, help us to remember to lift up our eyes to the hills. From where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. You're bigger than our problems. God, help us as we learn to do this together, and we thank you in advance for the life that we will find. And in these moments, we thank you for this breath as we sit in your presence. Amen.
Well, I know you've been challenged and encouraged today by Kevin to lean into this idea of rest, to not just put it to the side, but to find that 24-hour period where you produce nothing, where you rest in God and find the best things that God has in mind for you. We hope you'll lean into that this week as you have a great week finding the best of what God has in mind for your life.